Hi, boys and girls. Miss Kathy here from Shaler North Hills Library with Zeus, and we're coming at you to do another Greek myth Mania. I thought Zeus was going to stick her head up there. There she goes. Well, a little bit. So we have, this is week 6 if you've printed out the packet of papers, and we have Dionysus and Hestia this week. So let's get started right away with our Greek myth awesome book that we read from every week, the Dolores Book of Greek Myths, and this is my horrible copy once again. And there is a website in that packet that you can follow along if you want to on the pages that we are going to read together, or right now you can just sit back and relax. We're starting with Dionysus on page 64 if you want to get to that spot online. And I will move aside so we can focus on the book. Dionysus, the god of wine, was the youngest of the Olympians. He was the only one of the 12 great gods whose mother was a mortal. His father was Zeus himself. Jealous Hera hated his mother, the beautiful princess Semele. And one day when Zeus was away, the goddess disguised herself as an old crone and went to visit her. She talked about this and about that, pretending to be very friendly. And then she asked why Semele's husband was not at home and what kind of man he might be. "He is nobody less than mighty Zeus," Semele said proudly. "How can you be so sure about that?" said the old woman. "I know many husbands who claim to be the Lord of all creation. Do you have proof that he really is who he says he is? If I were you, I would ask him to show himself in all his splendor." Then she went away, and Semele was left alone, wondering. When Zeus returned, Semele asked him to grant her a wish. Zeus, who loved her dearly, swore by the river Styx to fulfill any wish she might have. So that was a very sacred oath back in ancient Greece, because the river Styx was the river that led into the land of the dead, and there was no going back from there. So to swear by it was pretty sacred. "Then show yourself in all your splendor," said Semele. Zeus begged her to change her wish, for he knew that no mortal eyes could bear the sight of him when he revealed himself as the flashing thunder god, 100 times brighter than the sun. But Hera had planted the seed of suspicion so deep in Semele's heart that she refused to change her wish. Zeus had to keep his promise, for he had sworn by the river Styx, the most solemn oath of the gods. He joined together the smallest storm clouds he could find, chose his tiniest lightning bolt, and showed himself to Semele as the mighty thunder god. Even so, he was so brilliant that Semele caught fire and burned to cinders. Zeus could do nothing to save her. She went down to Hades as a fluttering ghost. Zeus barely managed to rescue her unborn son and sewed him under the skin of his own leg. And when the child was ready to be born, he sprang forth as the immortal god Dionysus. Zeus knew well enough who was the cause of Semele's death, and he gave her little son to Hermes and told him to hide the boy from Hera. Hermes carried Dionysus to the faraway valley of Nysa and left him in the care of a band of Maenads, the nymphs of that valley. There Dionysus grew up with tigers and leopards for playmates. Large bunches of purple grapes grew on the sunny slope of the valley Nysa, and in time Dionysus invented the making of wine from their juice. As a young and beautiful god, dressed in flowing robes of royal purple, he went out into the world to teach men how to make wine. The Maenads went with him, and so did the leopards and tigers, and ever more followers joined him. Wherever he went, he was worshipped as a new god, and his father Zeus watched him with pleasure. Dionysus returned to Greece and traveled from island to island, teaching the making of wine. One day, as he was sleeping alone on a beach, a pirate ship sailed by. When the pirates saw the richly clad youth, they thought he was a prince and carried him off on their ship to hold him for ransom. He did not wake from his heavy slumber till the ship was far out at sea. With gentle words he tried to persuade the pirates to take him back. He was not a prince, he said. He was the god of wine, and his riches were not of this world. The pirates laughed scornfully and sailed on, paying him no heed. Suddenly their laughter died, for out of the sea sprouted vines loaded with grapes. They grew, twining around the oars, winding up the mast, and spreading over the whole ship as though it were an arbor. That's a place where you go grapes. Blood-red wine dripped down the sail, and the air was filled with the sound of roaring tigers and braying donkeys. Dionysus himself seemed to grow till he filled the ship with his glory. Horrified, the sailors threw themselves into the sea, but they did not drown, for Dionysus was a kind god. He changed them into dolphins, and that is why dolphins are the most human of all creatures that live in the ocean, because they began as humans. Dionysus had brought much joy to mankind. The ancient Greeks couldn't imagine life without wine. And Zeus decided that the time had come to give him a golden throne on Olympus. Hera rose in anger and said she refused to share the hall with the son of a mortal woman. But Zeus pounded his indomitable fist, and Hera sat silent. She could argue, but there was no winning an argument with Zeus. She'd already killed his poor wife. There were only 12 thrones in the hall, so kind Hestia quietly rose from hers and said that Dionysus could have it. Her place was at the hearth, she said. She needed no throne, and we're going to read more about her next. Before seating himself on his throne, Dionysus asked to see his mother, for whom he had always longed. Zeus not only permitted him to see her, but let him go down to Hades and bring her up to the glory of Olympus, for she was now the mother of one of the great gods. Happily, Dionysus entered the hall and seated himself on his golden throne. The air was filled with the music of flutes and tambourines. Never had there been such a din and merriment on Olympus. Zeus looked around with great content and beckoned to his cupbearer, Ganymede, bidding him fill the golden goblets with sweet nectar. And that is the end of the story of Dionysus and how he came to be. So he's the god of wine and partying, because they often go together, but he was a very gentle and kind god as well. Okay, let's read a little bit about Hestia. We first met Hestia back in the very beginning when we talked about Zeus and his family. This is on page 17. We talked about Metis went to Cronus and tricked him into eating a magic herb. He thought the herb would make him unconquerable, but instead it made him so sick that he vomited up not only the stone he had swallowed, but his 5 other children. They were the gods Hades and Poseidon, and the goddesses Hestia, Demeter, and Hera, all mighty gods who right away joined forces with Zeus. And then we talk about Cronus and how he was overthrown eventually. So out of the 6 original, Hades, Poseidon, Zeus, Hestia, Demeter, and Hera, those are all some of the original Olympian gods. And then we meet Hestia again. On this page, it's the eldest sister of Zeus, goddess of the Hearth. She had no throne because we learned she gave it up for Dionysus. But she tended the sacred fire in the hall, and every hearth on earth was her altar. She was the gentlest of all the Olympians. So every hearth, every home had a hearth in it at that point, because that's how they heated their house in Greece, and they were all little temples to Hestia. Keep the fire burning when you wanted her to look over your home and keep it safe. So that's what we can learn from this book about them. Let's see what they have to say in the weird but true book that we have from National Geographic. And we have Dionysus on page 62. And Hestia, will do her first because she's on page 32. Goddess of hearth and home. Hestia may have lived on Olympus, but she's not officially grouped there because myths tell her of offering up her throne, which we know. She was known as a kind, quiet goddess and didn't get involved with the drama often surrounding her siblings. Instead, she kept to herself, never left Olympus, and didn't interfere in the lives of mortals either. As a result of her minding her own business, she isn't featured in as many myths as her brothers and sisters, one of the more quiet ones. Why she's weird, it says down here, because she was the first kid to be eaten by her father Cronus, but then we know that she was thrown up again later on. Both the gods Apollo and Poseidon wanted to marry Hestia, but she was set on staying single for life, so she asked Zeus to grant her this wish, and he agreed. Later he would grant the same wish, as we know, to Artemis and eventually Athena, and together the trio became known as maiden goddesses, or those who pledged never to marry. Your house today may look nothing like those that the ancient Greeks dwelled in, but there may be one striking similarity: a fireplace. Many of you might have fireplaces in your home, even if you don't use them to heat the whole house. Back then, the fireplace, or hearth, was located in the center of the home. They were quite large and used mostly for cooking. While we don't typically cook dinner in our fireplaces today, we do gather around them in the colder months with families to keep cozy and warm. Same idea as bonfires at the beach or huddling around a campfire. And just like in ancient times, a hearth remains a symbol of hospitality and protection at home. Hestia also had some power to make homes happy and warm. She wasn't in charge of keeping Olympus's flames flickering only. She was also the protector of hospitality, the preparation of food and bread, and the giver of happiness at home. Later in ancient Greece, Hestia became a very important figure. They began and ended each meal with an offering to Hestia and dedicated the most delicious part of their food to her. Every city and town in ancient Greece had a public hearth with an eternal flame dedicated to Hestia. So that's quite an honor. Every single city and town had to have a public flame dedicated to Hestia. So, pretty cool that she was so quiet and peaceful and yet had such an honor given to her. Then we turn to page 62. Dionysus, god of merrymaking. And we learned about his birth already. And we learned about the pirates. Dionysus may not have been a prince, but he did have royal taste when it came to love. He fell for Ariadne, the mortal princess of Crete, after finding her stranded and alone on the island of Naxos, which we will read about in one of the superheroes if we get off of just the Olympian gods and go to some of our heroes. The pair went on to have a very happy marriage, but unlike her husband, Ariadne, who was mortal, could not live forever. When she died, Dionysus dedicated stars in the heavens in her honor. Today, the constellation Corona Borealis, a semicircle arc of stars, also known as the Northern Crown, is said to represent the jewel-studded crown given to Ariadne by Dionysus. Let's see. Singing their tune, the love story between Dionysus and Ariadne was so epic it inspired a famous opera, which I cannot say. Ariadne of Naxos made its debut in 1912 and is still performed around the world today. The opera, sung entirely in German, tells the tale of a lovelorn princess who believes her fate is sealed when her first husband takes off to Athens without her. That is, until the dashing Dionysus stumbles onto the shores of her island and sweeps her off her feet and up to the heavens. So we will get to that a little bit later on when we do some of our superheroes that are not mortal god, or they're not immortal gods, but mortal men that had super wonderful adventures and stories about them. And one of them rescues Ariadne from her palace and takes her away with him, as she asks him to do because they had fallen in love. But then he has to leave her when they end up on a certain island. He leaves her when she falls asleep because he knows that Dionysus loves her, and you don't want to mess with a god in love with a mortal. So that is what we know about Dionysus. Okay, and then we'll find them in our Treasury of Greek Mythology book here that we have. We have beautiful illustrations in this book. I don't think we're learning anything new from this book most of the time when we do it, but I do like to share the pictures with you because I think they are so awesome. And there is Hestia up in the sky with her fire. Hestia is a mysterious figure. She appears only as the goddess prayed to about family matters. The ancient Greeks seem to hold family concerns private, separate from the usual squabbles of their stories. The earliest records of family law in Greece are the Codes of Gorton in Crete in 450 BC, which concern finances. That means has to do with money. They don't tell how an ordinary family should behave at home. Probably the father ruled, given how royal households in Greek mythology behaved, but that's just a guess. So, goddess of the hearth. And then we go to Dionysus. And he is on page 119 in here. And there he is, partying and merrymaking, holding his rather large goblet. Of course, he was a god, so I'm sure everything they had was rather large. The giving grape, Dionysus is the god of wine. Wine originated in the Caucasus and Iran area. It appeared in Greece around 4,500 years BC. Greece is rocky, so olive trees grow easily. Though there is little soil soft enough to be plowed, Greece's climate helps. For many months it's dry and sunny, then it's humid and cool. Typically mild, but it can snow in the mountains. Greeks quickly learned to grow grapes on sunny terraces and to make wine from them. They taught these arts to the rest of Europe. So the Greeks were the first one to come up with the winemaking process, sounds like. He also taught farmers to grow vines, pick their grapes, and that's what we read in the other story, spread the word of how to make wine for them. And they have the pirate story in here as well. And there's a picture of the grapevines coming up out of the ocean and the people diving in, the people on board ship, but he changed them into dolphins so that they would not die. Dionysus could be changeable, it says in this book, from calm and sweet to wild and hateful. His rage at being disrespected transformed him into a lion, and the frightened crew dove overboard and became dolphins. So it depends who you talk to. Some people say he did it out of kindness, changed them into dolphins, and other people say that it was because he was mad, made them into dolphins. But I think they probably would have died otherwise, so dolphin may have been a better bet. Okay, let's look at our packet of stuff here. And we have, again, the website that you can read some facts about each of them and then take a little quiz at the end. And those pages can also be read out loud to you, so that makes them pretty cool. More facts about Hestia at that location. Since Hestia is the goddess of the hearth and home, make a paper bag house. No specific directions, just see the picture on this page and use your own creativity. So this is the one that was pictured in the packet, and my daughter and I had a lot of fun making ours together. You see it here in the video. So we made a house with a window and a chimney and a tree and a bush and a front door, and you can make yours however you want. You can even make a white house if you have a white paper bag. You can make a fence around it. You can put on a different type of window or door. You can do whatever you want. Add some trim, add some front porch. We have it sitting on some grass with a road going by, or maybe that's the driveway. It's just a lot of creativity, and you can do this since Hestia is the goddess of home and hearth. You can make a home. If you want to do a whole bunch of them, you can have a whole village. And we know now that every village had a hearth set up to Hestia. So you can make a little fireplace in your village too, so that she is being honored. Okay, then the next thing was you can make some masks, because Dionysus is supposed to be connected with the theater as well. God of theater. Now this is number 7. I skipped over number 6. We'll talk about that later. But color these Greek masks and act out something at home. Since Dionysus is known for his partying, the first theater that was made and was a gathering of people coming together to enact something else was dedicated to him as well. And there are 2 main themes in Greek drama. We hear about comedy and tragedy. So we have a comedy mask here with the man smiling, and you can cut out the mouth and the eyes and punch holes in the side with string. You could tie it around your face. And then we have, this is the actual, another comedy mask, a little bit simpler. This is a drama mask of the tragedy. That's supposed to be like a frowny face you would put on. And then we have an open mouth one. Oh. And these are supposed to be the spots where you put a hole through and put some string. So you can blow them up bigger on your printer if you want, if your face is a little bit larger. But these are often shown the types of masks that would have been worn by the actors in Greek drama to change their appearance. And then we have the one that I skipped is a crossword puzzle where you have to fill in the names of the different gods and goddesses. We've learned about all but 2 of them, and I give you those 2 names on this list. Aphrodite and Athena are coming up next week, and I tell you who they are, because here you need to know god of war, god of love, and that was Aphrodite, god of death. So those are the ones that we've studied in the past. So if you can't remember, go back and look at the ones we've read so far. There's also the coloring sheets to do at the very beginning of this packet. The coloring sheets for each of the gods. So this week you can do Dionysus and Hestia. And then the very last one on your list is a word game about Dionysus that you can play on this site. Words are hidden in a letter grid. Find them as fast as you can and match them with their definitions on the right. So it's a game of speed. See how you do on that one. So there are a ton more Greek myth sites out there on the computer. I try to pick out some that I think are especially appropriate for kids and especially fun to do, and that tie in with the gods or goddesses that we are doing each week. So hopefully you found them somewhat enjoyable. You don't have to do them all. Just pick out a few. Maybe you'll find something even better. Who knows? But those are our gods for this week. Have fun making your own little house. And I hope you enjoy all the activities for Greek Myth Mania. And I will see you again. I just told you who the two we are doing next time, Aphrodite and Athena, two of the famous female goddesses from Mount Olympus. So stay with us. Zeus stayed with us the whole time, even though she has kept very quiet because she's listening and learning. And this has been Miss Kathy coming at you from Shaler, North Hills Library. Remember, we are open 6 days of the week, only closed on Sunday, and different hours though, so check out the website and see what hours we're open. Come in and pick out books for yourself. We have a lot of other great Greek myth books in the library. If you're still not comfortable coming in, we're more than happy to fill orders for you over the computer or over the phone, and then you just come to the window and pick them up. And you don't have to come into the building. So whatever works best for you, we are happy to help. We are here for you. So come in and see us or give us a call. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.